everybody. Thanks for coming back and giving me a reason to put on pants today. That was a good thing. I even did my hair. Isn't it hard to put clothes on these days? I find it hard. It's my birthday soon, and my family, although I went out and purchased it, bought me a new Cuisinart because I had dropped the lid of mine and it doesn't seem to want to work that way. So, with your Cuisinart, handy. Remember, I sent a little note. We're going to make pie today, both sweet and savory. So we're going to start with our pie dough. My pie dough is so easy. I teach it at my classes and people just love it. My cat is behind me, very upset that I've closed the door so you can't see the mess behind that door. So my family bought me this beautiful Cuisinart, which I paid for, but I'm going to make Peter, who's filming, pay me back. It's the same account. So anyway, if you got a new Cuisinart like I did, you know the drill with Cuisinarts. Don't put any blades in while it's plugged in. Plug it in. So as you've probably heard many times with pie dough, you don't want to touch it or fuss with it too much, and that can actually make your pie dough quite hard and not flaky. So everybody says, oh my goodness, you're using a food processor to do your pie dough? Well, yes, because how can you touch it any less than with a food processor? So I'm using the entire pound of Crisco. If you'd rather use tender flake or lard, you can. My mother never used lard, so I never use lard. So I'm just cutting this into pieces. You don't really have to, but that's my Crisco going in there, 1 pound of Crisco. This is a foolproof recipe. I once put it in a cookbook and they forgot to put the flour in it. And it's called the Foolproof Pie Dough Recipe by Sara, and forgot to put the flour in it. I'll tell you, it's no longer foolproof when you forget to put the flour in the recipe. So I had many phone calls. Anyway, that's a pound of Crisco. Now we're gonna put 5 cups of flour. Now 5 cups of flour seems a lot. This isn't only gonna make 1 pie crust, it's gonna make quite a few pie crusts. So 1, 2, 3. I always tell the kids that when I'm teaching them, they always say, how come some pie crusts are so good and some aren't? Well, it's funny, when you're doing it by hand, your hands have to be a very good temperature for, that was only 4 I know, but I'm gonna come back in a minute to it. If you have the perfect temperature for pastry, you make some very good pie dough. If your hands are always warm, it's not the best pie dough. So I'm just gonna pulse this. And that should be starting to turn my flour and the Crisco into something that looks a bit like oatmeal or like oatmeal. So we're just gonna do that for a few minutes. I'm just pulsing it. It's a new machine to me as well, so every machine's a little bit different, but Cuisinarts usually work very, very well. My dog is next to me wondering why I'm talking to the camera. So here you can see, when I take this lid off, Peter will come up closer, and you'll see we're just getting the Crisco to break up amongst the flour. I will take this off in a second. So here we go. So it's starting to break up the Crisco. It hasn't broken up all of it. I will continue breaking some up. So there we go. And then the liquid that we will put in. The liquid we're going to put in is we're going to fill a 1 cup measure. Now with that 1 cup measure, we're going to put 1 egg yolk, just the yolk. We're going to save the white, and that's what we can brush some of our pie with. Also, it lets us check that the egg has no blood spots, because we like a nice clean egg. So there you go. You put that into a measuring cup, the 1 egg yolk. Then we're going to put 1 tablespoon of vinegar. This is a tablespoon of vinegar. And the next thing we're going to do is fill it to make a cup of orange juice. Now, if you have fresh oranges, that's good. If you have just some orange something in your house, that's good. People, like my husband just said, you're not going to use orange juice when it's a savory and a sweet pie. It doesn't actually make the dough very sweet, but it does something about the acid in it makes it very, very good. So the beauty of these Cuisinarts is you can take the lid off and fill. Now you still see I have 1 extra thing of flour in. When this comes together, my food processor work is much larger, so I can throw all 5 cups in. This is only an 8 cupper. So This is the egg white, which we'll save for later. And now I'm going to pulse. See, it's going to So I added the other cup of flour in when things started to emulsify, what started going together. Like I said, I'm used to a much bigger Cuisinart, so I can usually do it all in one go. We'll see if I can this time. How you know it's ready is when it becomes a ball. When it becomes one nice ball and it's all ready as dough, and then you haven't touched it very much. I'm going to put the little bit of flour that's on here, I'm going to move this over, and I'm going to now dump out my dough. First unplug my Cuisinart. And the only reason this didn't come into one nice cohesive ball, although it kind of is because of the size of my machine. So I'm just going to show you that it is actually a beautiful pie dough. So I'm just going to make it go into a nice little ball. At this point we can put it in the fridge for a bit, but it's because I use nice cold Crisco, it's actually all ready to use. Let me just show you how it comes together as a nice ball. My hands all are a good temperature for pastry making. It always seems to make a really beautiful flaky dough. You don't really have to touch it too much. You don't want the Crisco being mushed around too much. It's good if you see a little piece of the Crisco flake in it or the lard flake in it. That's actually what makes crust so nice and flaky. So we're going to divide this into, this probably makes about 5 pie bases. So it either makes 5 pie bases or it will make 2 full pies plus 1 pie for the savory pie that I'm going to show you in a few minutes. Yesterday I made some homemade Jewish penicillin chicken soup. I saved the broth, I saved the chicken, and we are going to make a chicken pot pie. And one of our viewers asked me to make a cream pie, so we're probably going to make a cream pie. My favorite pie is rhubarb strawberry pie. I don't have any rhubarb. That's what I wanted to show you. If I go to the store and happen to find some frozen rhubarb, maybe I'll do that for you now that I'm wearing pants. So we have 4, actually we're going to get a little bit more. We're going to get 5, we're going to get 6 nice balls of dough. The other thing I do when I'm not using all the dough is I freeze these in Ziploc bags, just like this, about a nice palm full, and I always have pie dough at the ready to pull it out if I'm having company to make a quick pie. When you come back, I'm going to show you both a savory pie and a sweet pie. So I'm back. The dough is behind me. It sat for a little bit. It's great. My Cuisinart rinsed out. I made homemade chicken soup, so I've cut up 3 cups of cubed chicken from the chicken soup, so it's already nice and flavorful. If you haven't made chicken soup, you can go to the store and get one of the roast chickens. I like to use just the breast. If you're a brown meat person, you can use whatever pieces you want. Just cut up 3 cups of it. Now, to save my poor arthritic thumbs, I'm going to be putting the vegetables in the Cuisinart to make them nice and tiny. Now, I had chopped up some onions, but my children, if they see an onion, the meal is over. Well, that's just the younger one. So I'm just going to chop these up very tiny and put them back in this little bowl for a second. They just make it so that you can't see them at all. And now, with my Cuisinart, if I put in the carrots and the potatoes, they should just chop up. Now you can spend time and dice them if you want, that's perfectly fine, but it doesn't matter so much. We're going to cook them down and it will work just fine. So just pulse them and it should just chop them up. There is a food processor out there that my old assistant, she's not old, but she's my assistant, Brenda. Hi, Brenda. I had the best assistants in the world. I love them all. Brenda got, and she says it dices. I haven't found it yet, but apparently it does. So I will have this all ready to go. You'll meet me at the stove, and I'm going to show you how we're going to make the roux for the chicken pot pie. And you'll be surprised. My chicken pot pie is going to be nice and creamy, but it has no milk in it whatsoever. So we'll see you in a second. So here I have a 1/4 cup of butter that is melting. You can use butter and you can also use margarine if you want. I have my shredded onion, which is about 2 tablespoons of shredded onion. You could use 2 or 3 tablespoons. And we're just going to cook that a little bit. Now I'm using my homemade chicken broth, so I know it's very flavorful. If you don't want to use your homemade chicken broth, you're also welcome to use a Knorr's pack or whatever you want. You can use any sort of chicken in the mug type thing. So here we have the onions and the butter. That's all that's in there. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of flour. We're going to mix it around, and we're making a roux. So the roux that we're making is just thick. It's going to be onions, it's going to be the flour, and it's going to be butter. So you can see it just makes a thick blob in here. Doesn't look terribly appetizing, but it does smell good in here, doesn't it, Peter? He's nodding. He's not nodding the camera, but he's nodding. So I'm going to add 3 cups of my chicken broth in, and you're going to watch it sort of becomes thick as I keep doing this. And I did chop up the potatoes, so I did 2 large potatoes, I did 2 large carrots, and 2 large celery. You can chop it up and dice it up nice and fine. I didn't bother today because it's just my family. If I was serving all of you nice people, I would probably make it a lot nicer. So here's my roux coming together into a nice thick sauce. And a little bit more. And you always think it's not going to make enough, and then it suddenly does. I'm going to make sure it's got enough pepper and salt in it. I will maybe do that at the end. So this is looking very nice. I'm now going to add all my vegetables. So my vegetables are the potatoes, the carrots, the celery, and I add corn. Now the recipe that is original doesn't say to use corn. It says to use mushrooms that you fried up in a little bit more butter. My family doesn't like mushrooms, so I didn't put mushrooms in. So we're going to do this. It's actually good that the potatoes are very small. The potatoes, this cooks for 45 minutes, but the potatoes take a very long time to cook in the oven. So it's good to have them really, really tiny if possible. And add a little bit more of the liquid, because I didn't measure, because I never measure anything, but it should be about 3 cups of liquid. Now I will add the chicken to this. Nice diced up chicken, again 3 cups of chicken. And we're not actually cooking the insides of this, we were actually just making the sauce. Everything else is cooked and ready to go. And then you'll join me back at the pie plate where we put our beautiful pie crust that we made earlier on it. See you in a minute. So my nice piece of dough, my husband I have to give credit for, he was so smart. As I was transferring this into a casserole, he said, why don't you just put the pie dough on top of the Le Creuset? And of course that was a great idea. The beauty of the cast iron, the Le Creuset or the stove, is it goes from oven to stove. So here's my pie dough. So remember, it's supposed to look a little bit crumbly. That means it's probably going to be nice, flaky dough. Now because I've decided to put it in this instead of in the smaller container, I might need a little bit more pie dough. This is just one of the balls. But we don't put a bottom crust on this. We just have the top crust on this, which really is delicious. The fat from the crust seeps in. My sauce I've tasted, I added some pepper to it. It's very, very yummy. You just roll that over your rolling pin. You shouldn't rip it like I just did. And you set it on top. Now it does need holes in it anyway for breathing. You don't want it to if you don't put holes in it, it will explode. So you want it to be nice and have little air holes. I would have cut air holes anyway, but we're making it fairly rustic. It's just my family and all of you. So here we go, making it a pretty crust. Well, as pretty as we can. That's it. These little air holes will help it so that it doesn't explode, because if you don't put air holes, either pricks with a fork or something, little knife slits in it, it does explode. So here we go. I'm just taking that egg white from earlier, brushing it just a little bit on. You can also brush it with milk if you'd rather. You could brush it with butter. The egg white's here, so I'm going to use it. So we'll show you the finished product in a minute. And then I'm going to show you the pie we're going to make. And this will be our whole supper. And we will post the recipe at the bottom. See you in a minute. So everybody, I actually don't like the way the end of this looks. It's a little too far away. Had I used the regular size casserole dish that I usually use, it would have had the dough come over the sides, and we would have had enough to pull it up and make the edge prettier. So I'm just rolling the extra dough that I have, because we have lots from that recipe, into a little snake. I'm pushing it along, and you just push it between your fingers, like so. And it makes a prettier end to it. And the good part is you get to see me screwing up. So you know that if you screw up, it's okay, and there's almost always a fix to it. So when this comes out of the oven, you'll see it looking a lot prettier than I first showed you, because this is what I've gone back to do to make it look nicer. Now I will see you in a few minutes for the continuation of our dessert pie. So here I grab another puck of our lovely dough, and we're just going to roll it into a circle. I have also put some flour on my rolling pin, and you just keep turning it so it will be a nice circle. And we are going to turn this into a not a chicken pie, that's in the oven, a chocolate cream pie. My daughter loves chocolate cream pie. This is the one similar to the one from The Help, the movie The Help, except I won't put what she put in hers. If you've ever seen the movie, watch it, you'll know what I mean. Anyway, this is really nice dough. You'll see that you can actually see pieces of the Crisco in it. That's what you want. That's how it makes it a very nice flaky dough. Now we're just going to make this a little bit bigger than that pie plate. Some cream pies, you would bake the crust first. Actually, most cream pies, you bake the crust first. And you would prick the bottom with a fork to let those air holes be in there so it doesn't puff up. Otherwise, some people put peas or dried beans in it, and then they make that so it doesn't puff up, keeps it down. I find just pricking the crust helps. So you just add little pieces to make it better. There's so many ways to make the edges so pretty. You can do it with a fork like my mother did. She always used to have it go over and then just press it with a fork. I actually like to do it with a spoon as well, and it makes some pretty edges to it. But we're not going to see many edges with this because we're going to fill it with the chocolate cream, and then we'll be putting whipping cream on top and probably some chocolate sprinkles, real pieces of chocolate. So when I come back, we will be filling this pie and telling you how to do the rest of it. I'm just going to continue making the edge nice. If your pie dough's too thick, it's not really a great pie. So we just want it to be a nice crust, and we'll be back with our whole crusty dinner, chicken pot pie, and I'll show you how to make the chocolate cream for the chocolate cream pie. So I'm just going around this pie crust with a fork just to make sure, for two reasons. It's a little bit pretty, and also to make sure it's sort of sticking down to the pie plate nicely. Now, in all recipes, when you're using a single crust pie, they're going to tell you that you need to prick the bottom with a fork, and that's, like I said, so it doesn't bubble up. This recipe, you are supposed to put tin foil on top and some dried beans or dried lentils, and then we're going to bake it at 350 for about 15 minutes. I'm not going to bother with the beans. I find that my dough, when I prick it, does sort of stay flat enough, and so I don't go through that whole bother. So we're going to do that, put it in. I want it dry but not brown. So it's going to take about 15 minutes. Then we'll come back and I will show you how to make the inside of this chocolate cream pie, and then we will fill it, we rebake it for a little bit longer. So I'll see you back with our delicious pie recipe. Okay, so I baked the crust as I told you, so it's dry, but it's not brown. Here I have 1.5 cups of just plain white sugar. I have 3 tablespoons of plain old cocoa. Then I'm gonna put 4 tablespoons of butter that I've melted. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll say 4. We're gonna mix that up here. Some of these recipes say you to use real chocolate in it, but with our staying at home, I didn't have real chocolate, so the cocoa's good. Then we're going to put 3/4 cup of the evaporated milk. It doesn't have to be carnation, any kind of evaporated milk. My daughter went out and bought me a lot of it, so I'm guessing it's a hint to make this pie more than once. But if you do have extra evaporated milk like I do, it is my favorite thing to put in tea. Better than cream, better than milk or anything. It's the best. So here we have this coming together nicely. Then we're gonna beat up 2 eggs. We're gonna pour those in. We're gonna put 1 teaspoon of vanilla and just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I was talking about my assistants before. I've had a few assistants at my work. I still talk to all of them. I still love all of them. One of my assistants you'll see has asked me if I would make some Passover food, which I might do next week. Brenda is the one who I was talking about earlier, and Pam, who's also still working with me. And now I have a new assistant named Kat, who I also love very much, who I'm missing because she cleans up after me. And now it's just me cleaning up after me. So Kat, you can come over anytime you want because I miss you. So here's the chocolate. And now you're just gonna pour it into this crust. And this is unusual because lots of people just put pudding and they hope for the best. And the pudding is good. This is better. And now we're gonna bake it. And that's what's gonna set it, is the baking it. We're gonna put it in the oven at 350 for about 45 minutes. And the whole thing will set. If you see it turning a little bit brown on the edges, you can put a little bit of tin foil around the edges. And then we're gonna let it cool off. We're gonna top it with whipping cream. And what's nice about this recipe is you don't cook this on the stove. Most cream pie recipes, you have to cook on the stove, you have to temper the egg. This one is just throw it all together, put it in the oven for 45 minutes. It will bubble up, it will become a nice custard, and then we'll top it with real whipped cream. And I'll show you the whole supper in a bit. Everybody, here's our dinner tonight. Yum, yum, yum. We will enjoy, and we'll show you the pie when we're ready for that. Thanks, everybody. Here's our chocolate pie, which we will leave now to set for a couple hours until it's room temperature. We will top it with a dollop of whipping cream. As you can see, it's set very nicely on top. So everybody, here's our very pie-ish supper. Chicken pot pie, chocolate pie. We'll finish it with dollops of whipped cream. And thank you for giving me a reason to wear clothes today. Bye, everyone.